It gives me great pleasure to invite on stage none other than the inventor of the World Wide Web, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, to address us.
Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me to speak. This is exciting going to be in. These are exciting times. They just get more and more exciting because things change more quickly. Things change because of technology. And so every layer of technology that comes in means that we will end up bringing in the next layer on the top of it more rapidly. So I'm going to talk about various things. I'm going to start off though by going back to tell you my digital journey. For a lot of people nowadays, so I invented the World Wide Web. They don't, so you invented the internet. No, actually, they're different. It was very hard persuading people that the web was a good idea. Sometimes I think about it like a bobsled. I've never actually been in a bobsled, but when you see it on TV, initially, so you have to get a team of people together, and it's all about getting this thing going, and you push the bobsled, and then it comes to a certain point when the bobsled goes faster and faster, and you really have to get it and steer. Otherwise, it's bad. So for the web, there was a critical point. And getting into steering meant making a consortium. MIT knew how to make a web and industry consortium because they'd done it before, so I went to MIT. Also, the center of gravity of the internet was in the States. So jumped into the bobsled with the companies who were excited about it, with digital, with HP, IBM, with the Netscape, which was just being formed. And we started on the consortium. The first job was to manage the battle between the browsers, between Microsoft and Netscape's browsers, to make sure that whatever browser you used, there was just one web. The danger then was that different manufacturers would go off and make different incompatible versions of the web, and you wouldn't be able to just make a link to anything. One web has been really, really important. Fighting for that has been really, really important. So, I suppose from one of the transition points, I suppose, was that bobsled moment when we realized I didn't have to push it anymore. Another formed the consortium. Another different transition was when several years later we looked at the world and found that 20% were using the web. Whoa! So 20% was at the moment a very large number and a very small number. So suddenly all the people who've just been trying to make it more cool, trying to make it more powerful, we're thinking every time we make it more powerful for those 20%, we make it, we make the digital divide bigger. Whenever we make it more powerful for the 20% who have the web, then we leave the other 80% of the world more disenfranchised. So we started the World Wide Web Foundation, which is about two things. It's about making sure that the web serves humanity, stepping back much bigger goals, and part of that is getting that to 80%, well, soon as 70%. It was getting the other 60% online. Looking at the last few years, we added a whole range of areas of the Web Foundation's thinking. And that's based on the fact that what happens in the web and in the world is based on AI. And one of the questions that, you can ask lots of questions about AI, and we may have time in the questions to go into. I'm going to ask one. It's a question you should ask about all of your AIs. Who did they work for? When you build an AI in your company, when you use that AI on your phone, who does it work for? Remember that data is only powerful when it's joined to other data. Data by itself isn't very powerful. Data joined to other data is when you get insight, of course. So that's why the open data is so cool, because it gives you data that you can link your corporate data to, at the moment, well, until this point, most of the joining which had been going on by Bob's data had been, Facebook had been joining his data to data about all its other people. How could we get from here the silos of Facebook, Twitter, and Cambridge Analytica, and how can we get there? Well, one answer may be partly Cambridge Analytica. There is a massive wave, you're aware, of emotion and reaction and concern about what's been going on. So people are not happy with the status quo. There's a lot of resentment, there's a delete Facebook tag, and but when people delete Facebook, they don't know what to go to. Imagine we made a world where they could own their own data. Then maybe then there is a huge amount. So the first reason is that there's a huge amount of anger and frustration. I suppose the same sort of frustration that to a certain extent led me to make the web. Really, it shouldn't be like this. I'm prepared to spend a lot of effort to make it different. Open banking means that you have to, as a bank, you have to give the consumer access to your data. So if all of the areas of healthcare and fitness and retail and so on were all subject to things like open banking, then regulation would mean we'd be able to build Charlie, or would be able to get his data. And there's a third reason why you might get it. Bob might end up owning his data not because he's got it from somewhere else, but maybe because it just always belongs to him. So in the new world which we're building, it's called Solid, it's solid.mit, then you, in the Solid world, you have data pods which allow you to store your data. When you run an application, whatever application it is, it actually runs in a private cloud or in a private data store which you control. And so all the things you do is you plot your days, you communicate, you chat with people, you create events, and you plan parties, and you design products, and you execute, and you write code. Then all of that stuff goes immediately into the store, and it's immediately, it's from creation, it's actually completely under the control of the user. So that is the solid vision, and that's the third way in which we may get to this space where we have complete control of our data. So you spend 95% of your life using World Wide Web, then you should spend that other 5% of your life helping protect it, keep it open and free, make sure that you working to make the open standards, but also fighting to keep the internet, which we've always assumed as being an open platform, keeping the internet as an open platform, depending on which country you're in. At various different times, we have to fight for net neutrality. In America, there's a battle to reinstate net neutrality going on right now. People have been out there on the streets. Huge numbers of people have been writing to the senators, and in the US, we just had a little gain in the Senate, but now that has to go to the Congress, which is getting to be much more difficult. Each country has its time when the local industry tries to take control, tries to get away of putting its own special bribery system, taxation system onto the internet, and that will be a massive damage. So, in that last 5% of your time, please help us join the Boat Foundation, join me helping, fighting to keep it open and free. Thank you very much.
If we didn't have net neutrality, where would we be heading?
We would be heading to cable television as it was in the USA. So when you got cable television, you bought the cable fee and you pay for a certain number of TV shows. And then you pay more money for sports, and you pay more money for news, and so on. And the cable TV provider completely determined what you could watch. Now, a lot of the people in that industry would love to go back to that. They hate the fact that when you're given an internet cable, you can watch anything over the internet. Because now we have, net neutrality is about a separate market for bits, the connectivity. I just pay for bandwidth. And my internet service provider, you must just be fast and reliable and cheap, and that's all you have to do. And then for content provider, the content from the internet service provision is not much faster in an incredible way, over a factor of 1 billion. Nothing else has done that. So the internet service provider industry has been very innovative and now provides much more faster service. But it hasn't had to worry about who produces the movies. There's so many people choosing the movies and the cool websites. They haven't had to worry about how to get them connected. In the cable TV world, if you want to produce a really cool movie, then you have to start negotiating with all of the individual regions for getting distributed. So that's it's horrible from the point of innovation, it's horrible from the point of creativity.
Could both the models sort of coexist? That you will have players who want to create their own subsidiaries, and then you have choice.
Nope. You have to keep it to the market for connectivity and the market for content are separate. That's how we got to here. It's been so much more healthy than having any countries together. So things like free basics sounds great for a lot of countries, but it's very insidious. It means that Brazilian people have been plenty about Facebook getting free basic on the condition that they don't fit it, but then use Facebook. I mean, you don't get to any other social networks.
If connectivity has to be neutral, that is what you invented, i.e. a big system, then you have to accept that content is not neutral, it's privately owned. That means that data is privately owned. Not at all.
So you can put a whole lot of content. You can put your movies on the web. But then when I watch them, then what we call activity stream, the stream of things I've been doing, lists of things I've been doing, what I've been watching, I can. We can design it either way. Either you can track it within YouTube or whatever it is, and so most of the data about what I would like on TV is kept in YouTube, or in the browser every time I watch something, we can track it in my browser history, and when we feed that into my AI, which starts recommending many things.
Absolutely. So the problem is that the creation of the data and the recording of the data is increasingly separate. And those who record the data actually can use it. You bring that back to financial services. The financial institution records the data. The customer creates it. Why shouldn't the financial institution be actually entitled to use that data?
Well, I think you should be entitled to use it, yeah, certainly. So for example, my bank statements, in an ideal world, then when I swipe my credit card somewhere, then wave my credit card somewhere, then my bank statement is changed, and there should be computers I have at home and computers in the bank which are in sync. Basically, the list of bank transactions on my checking account is the status relationship between me and the bank. There should be something that I and the bank agree on at all times, and I should store it. I have the same right to store it as they do. From the privacy point of view, I might want to say, well, look, I own it. From legally, I own that data. So if they want to sell it to an advertising company, then they have to talk to me about that.
But now, that's the regulated institution. If we take that the next step, and that is our next discussion panel is very well positioned. We now have the same financial transaction, your bank statement, with a non-regulated, non-financial institution. How does that then change the perspective?
I think, of course, when you design a completely new system, then you have to design all the aspects of it. You have to design how you transfer money, but also you have to decide on is it public? Is it when you make it public, do you use traceable? If you put something in the blockchain, do you use it? Where do you put it there so that you can be traced, so that people can see who's spending money on? So you can maybe design a system to be more or less accountable, more or less, and so yes, and I think there are issues. I can imagine a system which is just perfect for money laundering. Governments will have to clamp down. If there will be an assumption that if you use one of those money laundering systems, that is there's many rising.
You seem to advocate that the owner of the data should have greater ownership of it, but you're not advocating it all the way, meaning that if my data is mine, I decide who I want to give it to, for what purpose and so on. Something has to happen to data to be within the control of the owner. You're not exactly describing what that needs to happen. You're still advocating that data should be out there, data should be connected to each other in order to do so.
Well, data you put in Dropbox is, for example, is stuff you control, because it's your data that you put in Dropbox, and you can share it with professional people, you can share it with family members. So imagine that when you run some new financial, you have you log on to some financial services site which is going to get is going to advise you on your investments or something. You can say, oh, all of the data, please store in Dropbox. Okay, people are used. If the data is stored in Dropbox, people understand that it belongs to you. And so it's quite real, and people understand you have the ability to share it with them.
Well, the ultimate data is identity, and identity is something which, after you invented the World Wide Web, the jokes that were going around was that the person on the other side was your dog, and nobody knows. There's so many other questions, devices, and so on that we want to be able to continue with you. But before I invite our two panelists up, I need to take a selfie and put it up on my World Wide Web. Ladies and gentlemen, please thank Sir Tim Berners-Lee for his